Thank you very much for everybody for being here this morning. My name's Chris Huhn. I'm the chairman of the Anaerobic Digestion and Bioresources Association here in the UK. I have another little hat as a policy advisor for the World Biogas Association, but I'm here in my ADBA role. And I wanted to say a few words of welcome just to start off. The key thing, I think, is this has been the most exciting year for the sector in a very long time, because it's never good to benefit from other people's misfortune. I'm hesitant about putting it other than in those terms, but clearly the Russian invasion of Ukraine has made an enormous difference to the European gas market, and that of course affects biogas and biomethane. And people are looking at us today as a sector as an alternative to providing fossil gas and to providing it at scale in a way that I don't think they have in a very long time. Both policymakers in government and also investors, and also now, of course, big oil and gas. We've had three very significant multi-billion-dollar investments in the sector. BP's purchase of Archaea in the United States, the biggest biogas operator in the US. Shell's purchase of Nature Energy, the Danish operator and biggest biogas operator in Europe. Total Energies as another one of the big oil super majors, investment in Poland very recently. You've got a lot of capital being put into the sector precisely because people are increasingly convinced that we need to get out from under dependence on unreliable sources of fossil energy and grow more of our own needs within Europe. And so it's a very exciting time. I'm particularly delighted as well to be here to introduce this session precisely because one of the biggest growth areas for the sector is going to be agricultural wastes, manures and slurries. We already have a lot in, for example, wastewater. About 75% of the plants in the UK already have AD plants attached to wastewater plants. We have a lot in food waste. We can do more with food waste collections and local authorities. There is a whole new set of new feedstocks coming on, which will allow us to treat a lot of industrial waste. But agriculture remains the biggest potential for the sector in terms of manures and slurries and cover crops. And therefore it's with particular pleasure that our first speaker can talk about the modular approach. And the reason why I think I'm also very excited about the sector is not just what's happening to the gas price, not just what's happening to the new push on decarbonisation, but I'm also seeing an increasing amount of innovation on the technological front. AD, as many of you know, is one of the oldest renewable technologies. Some say it goes back to the ancient Egyptians, but certainly we know that the city of Exeter in the West Country of the UK was using AD to produce gas for its street lights in the 1880s at about the same time that Edison built the first hydroelectric dam in Wisconsin. So AD and hydroelectricity are the two granddaddies of the renewable sector. And this is the moment where we can really begin to see technological innovation moving the sector forward into new feedstocks and new areas where it really is attractive. So at that point, I would like to introduce our first speaker, who has a technology which I think is, as a number of the companies are involved with modular approaches. And the advantage of a modular approach is that you get away from what most AD operators have basically had to do up until now, where you have effectively a Savile Row. I'm not wearing a Savile Row suit, I can assure you, but you're measured up, you have a bespoke tailor-made suit. It costs rather a lot, when actually what we need, if we're going to have a real sort of growth that the International Energy Agency and others have projected for the sector, we need to move to something that's much more regular and much more modular and much more easy to install and run. So at that point, I would like to introduce Dr. Espen Govasmark, who's the Director of the Department of Research and Development at Antec. Now, Antec is a Norwegian company that has been investing in R&D in the sector and is coming up with solutions which I think are very interesting and which will become increasingly relevant. So over to you.
Yes, thank you. My name is Espen Govasmark. I'm the head of Research and Biology Department at Antec. Biology, because we're helping the biogas plants to run the factories. We have a new technology, so that's quite important. And we are doing research, developing the sector with new technology, and that is what I'm going to present here today. And I will focus a little bit on the problems. Running CSTRs is quite easy. You can just pump whatever you want around in the tank and you get biogas at the top. But the challenges has to be solved as well. And we need to move fast, because the energy demand in Europe is increasing, as the speaker said. Yeah. So Antec is a Norwegian-based company, but we are expanding to Europe as we speak. And we would like to invest and own and operate plants all over Europe in combination with other partners owning substrates. So if anyone interested, we have a stand on the right side just outside this tent. You can see on the left side, that is our digesters. They don't look like normal ones. They're horizontal, and they're a combination of two technologies. It's a plug flow, which is commonly used in chemistry. It's been there for many, many years, decades. And we're using biofilm. Biofilm is normally used in sewage treatment, removing nitrogen. We have biofilm in the biogas sector as well. Reactors that work very fast, but they do not tolerate particles, so you have to clean the water before producing the biogas. On the right side, you see our Prime Minister opening the biogas plant at Stord. This is the biggest one that we have. It's around 40 gigawatt biogas plant. What we are claiming, and I will hopefully prove some of it today, it's circular. We are producing biomethane as energy. That is the easy part. Then we can take out the carbon dioxide, and we can upgrade it to brewery quality, and you can have it in your beer or in your soda. But you're also producing biofertilizer, and that has become a huge product nowadays. The fertilizer price has increased. I heard in the UK you're shutting down the fertilizer plants due to the increased or high gas prices. This fertilizer that you can buy, the artificial fertilizer, they are using methane to produce the hydrogen, to produce the nitrogen, and so on. This can also be part of the solution for increasing energy production in Europe, or decreasing the energy usage in the agriculture industry. We are efficient. We have a retention time in the digester of down to 8 days on the 4 plants that we have today. That is at least 5 times faster than you have on a traditional CSTR, unless you have some kind of pre-treatments that speed up the process. It's sustainable, quite obvious, and it's profitable as well. They can compete with the traditional CSTR plants that we are building today. And we're also able to build it closer to where the waste is actually happening. Where do you have the waste? Because you can put it close to where people are living. It's more or less odorless, the plants that we're building. The results. The technology that we have is a biofilm. Biofilm is the same as you have on your teeth in the morning. You have plaque. That is a biofilm. You're removing it because it's producing acid and it tears down your teeth. That is, you have it all over. You have biofilms all over in nature. You have it in the bathroom if you're not washing it, because bacteria grows wherever. We have a film an inside architecture that promotes the biofilm to grow. That is opposite from the CSTR technology that has an inside that prevent the biofilm to grow. Biofilm produces acids. That is what the bacteria do. They are tearing down in a hydrolysis process. The first step, big molecules. You take the potato, you mash it down. That is pre-process. Then you have the hydrolysis breaking down the long molecules. You do the same in your stomach. That is the first part of our plug flow. The plug flow is the reactor is divided into different chambers, and each process, the four processes or the three processes, the hydrolysis, the acid production, and the methanogenic process, happens at different stages of the reactors, and that we can monitor. We are measuring the bacteria communities, and you can see that we have the hydrolytic bacteria in the first phase, and we have the methanogenic bacteria at the end phase. But you have them all because they are interconnected, so it's not only the hydrolytic bacteria. But that is our process, and the reason we can speed it up is that we have a high bacterial density of each of the phases. Bacterial degradation, it takes time. But you need to get in contact with the substrate and the bacteria. If you have lots of bacteria, you have a lot of contact plates. And that is why the hydrolysis process goes fast. It takes less than 1 day to break down the large molecules to smaller molecules that we can further process to biogas. In a traditional biogas plant, that takes at least 10 days in traditional CSTR. That is one of the processes that we can speed up. The second thing is that we can take those bacteria out in that phase and put it into the substrate as a pre-treatment. That I will show you some results on it later on. And then we can degrade the substrate individually with the bacteria that we're using in the anaerobic digestion process. For the acid production, it goes in the middle of the digesters. That goes fast. Those bacteria are growing enormously fast. They're producing the acid very fast. And we are able to overload that community. They're running at a pH at around 7. But what we measure is as soon as the methanogenic bacteria get in action, the pH increases actually to above 8. So the process goes fast. The methanogenic bacteria, those are growing slow, but they are working fast. We have reactors working on methanogenic phases for 4 hours and they have a very high yield. But the reason it has to take some time in the CSTR is the generation time. The time from growing from 1 to 2 to 2 to 4, 4 to 8, and so on, multiplying, takes time. We are growing those bacteria on the biofilm, so we're not draining them out. And then we can speed up the process because they're growing on the surfaces, not leaving the digesters with the effluent as you have it in a normal traditional CSTR technology. So that is why we can run the process fast. We can speed up the first process, which is slow. Traditionally, we can take out the bacteria to pre-treat the substrate, increasing the energy yield or the energy content of the substrates. And the rest of the process is very fast, but you need the bacteria to be there. And since they're growing inside, we're not diluting the system. So that is the key of our technology. We have recently had a due diligence report on the company performed by Rumble, and I will show you the background for some of the results that I'm claiming, or they are claiming or writing in the report. And I will, in this talk, I will focus on the feedstock and on the biogas yield when it comes to the performance, because that's important. You're earning money on the biogas. You need it to be fast. But also, how do we deal with the problems, impurities? For instance, food waste. Food waste is not a problem in the biogas sector. It's what comes with it, the plastic bag, the metal, whatever. For those of you operating those kind of plants, you know what I'm talking about. And sedimentation of the CSTRs. In Norway, they are empty them every 2 to 5 years, all the CSTRs due to sedimentation problems. We don't have that problem due to the architecture. And I will show you the operational time from 2 of the biogas plants that we have in operation. So just for those of you who are not familiar with the terminology, the phases are hydrolysis, acidogenesis, acetogenesis, and methanogenesis. Those are the processes that you need, regardless of technology. Those are the processes in the AD systems. Those are colored on the picture to the right side, where they occur. Then there's another terminology, biogas yield. That is the potential of the substrate you're using, because that is the maximum you can have out. But you take the actual production and you divide by that one, and that is the biogas yield, just so everyone follows that one. So, a project always starts with a graph on the left side. You do the biomethane potential or the biogas potential. It's a standard method for that in the industry, and everyone does that. How much energy can I get out of the feedstock that I'm using? On the graph you see, we have fish silage, that is dead fish in the fish farming industry. You have the blue one, which is food waste, and you have the red one, which is the cow manure. And cow manure normally contains low energy. We can increase, and I'll show you some graphs of that, but this is how you start. But on the right side, then you have the true story. What happens when you start operating the plant? And you will see you have a huge difference between the different feedstocks. You're not able to do all those analysis before you start the process or the project or building the plant. And we are now inventing, can we utilize the advantage of having separate bacterial culture in the digester to increase the feedstock energy? Because the bacteria needs the energy as they want. If you're eating acid, you need the acid. If you're eating the polysaccharides, sugar, whatever, you need the sugar. Can we increase that in the feedstock? Because that will lower the variation in the energy content. And variation in the biogas industry is the worst enemy. You want everything to be stable, because you have a gas upgrading system that doesn't tolerate variations or are bad on tolerating it. And the operators, they want to know in the morning, what will I expect? Looking at the screen, are the figures as I expect? Then you can calculate very easy. But you need to monitor it, that's quite important. So the answer I'm gonna give you to the question, can we reduce the variation in the energy of the available feedstocks using our technology? And this is not possible doing a CSTR unless you have a totally different process. I want you to focus on the purple one and the red graph. The red one, that is cow manure. Cow manure contains energy. The energy disappears if you store it for more than 3 weeks. The energy content for the bacteria decreases enormously by 5 to 6 times within a couple of weeks. On the purple ones, we have taken the bacteria from the hydrolytic phase, the first phase, the orange one, and given it to the cow manure, the solid part. We took out the liquid fraction, and then we were able to increase the energy availability of the cow manure by 5-fold. We're doing that on the food waste, we're doing it on the fish sludge, we're doing it on the fish ensilage, and we get the same results. If we have the correct bacteria community, we can increase the energy of the feedstock before the AD process. And that is speeding up, because this is a time consuming. At this time, on this graph, 18 to 24 hours pre-treatment, less than a day, then you can increase the energy of the feedstock that you're putting into the AD process. That is not possible with other technology, because you need the bacteria community. But this is how we can speed up and increase the biogas yield. Then we're moving for the biogas yield, and the blue part is the biogas production at the biogas plant that we're operating as the moment. And there's been some variation. This is for the last 7 months. The green line at the top, that is the biogas yield. And as you remember, it's the actual production divided by the potential production based on the methods that we are using in the industry. We had a problem on the biogas plant. You see that there was a fast increase at the beginning, and everything went okay, but the yield was low. The biogas yield was extremely low than we expected. It was down to 40-50-60% is the bar on the x-axis on the right side. And we couldn't understand why. Then we started monitoring. We analyzed all the parameters that you do in the biogas industry, and we found the reason. The same graph I've taken out the blue part. On the right side, there's a red line. That is the ammonia. Ammonia is toxic to bacteria. It's toxic to us as well, but for the bacteria. It goes in the cell membrane, they're not able to control their metabolism. And what we saw is that the ammonia increase, the free ammonia, that is what's going into the bacteria cells. When that increased, the yield decreased. Then we solved the problem. We changed the substrate, we did some changes on the plant, and the ammonia went down, and the increase in the biogas yield increased as well. And it went from 40–50% up to 85%. And they are now running, this is as a biogas plant producing quite a lot of biogas, at a yield of 85%. And if you see on the green graph, it's going up and down. Whenever it's going up, it's a stable phase. Then we're not doing increase in the loading. And whenever it goes down, we're increasing the load. So that is how the biogas yield is calculated. Yeah. And for the plug flow, I forgot one, sorry. On the right side, that is the acid concentration of the different chambers of the digesters, and you see that it decreases. A lot of people are claiming that these are just small CSTRs, but it isn't, because then everything will be equal inside. So the chambers that we have moving the substrate forward actually works with the different bacteria that we have. So this is the biggest plant we have. It's in Renevo at Stord. It's the west coast of Norway, close to Bergen. It's a 40 gigawatt plant, and they have 10 converters working today at a retention time, a hydrologic retention time of 14 days. But they are still in the ramp-up phase, because you need the bacteria to grow and develop with the stages that you want. The energy consumption on one reactor is 0.6 kilowatts. And that is very, very low. Pumping biogas substrates normally requires 1 to 3 kilowatt per pump that you're using. So the energy consumption is low, producing high yield or high energy biomethane. That is important. Now the products is of course biomethane, liquefied at this plant. You can do compressed, or you can use it as you want. They're also producing carbon dioxide, and of course biofertilizer for the agriculture market. And then the maintenance. I guess some of you have been working on biogas plant doing the maintenance. That is quite tedious process, and it costs enormous. It costs downtime. You're not producing, but you have to do the job, and you have to get the spare parts that you need. For 2 biogas plants that we are running today, they have a downtime of 2 days during the year. They have an uptime, production time, of more or less 100%, and that is quite unique. In Norway, we normally targeted at 80 to 85% production time. Then you have a success. In our case, the maintenance is very, very low. And the reason for that is that we're avoiding everything that goes fast. Every pump that is spinning fast, we take out. Everything goes slow. Because you have sand, you have glass, you have all kinds of tear and wear on the process. That is avoided in our digesters. The second thing is that we don't have sedimentation problems, luckily. So we don't have to stop the plant. But we have only been operating for 1 year, and if you remember what I said, they have to close down a digester for every 2 to 5 years. In Norway, that is quite normal. So how can I claim it, that we don't have sedimentation problems? Impurities. For those you see on the left side, that is food waste collected in the households. If it was only food waste, it would be nice, but it contains a lot of impurities. We have an infrastructure inside that moves the substrate from one end to the other end slowly. It rotates 6 rounds per hour. It goes slow. The sediments, we have an infrastructure as well, moving the sediments going to the bottom, slowly forward as well. So it goes out with a diggy state, and that is important. We're not filling it up with the sediments. If something happens and you have 10 converters, you can shut down one and you can still operate 9. So if it happens something that you need to open it, well, you can do it, but you're still running at 90% efficiency of the plant, because those other can still produce. And of course, the steering ensure that there's a good contact between the substrate and the bacteria film growing on the surfaces inside. My example is at one of the smaller plants, one of the first one we had, they are processing 10 to 12 tons of food waste delivered by a truck every week. According to the Norwegian numbers, 5 to 10% is plastic and light impurities. Those are floating, not sedimenting. The other 5 to 10 is heavy particles going to the bottom. And those are the ones creating problems for the digesters. They have been operating for 1 year. And if we calculate how much impurities they have been taking through the biogas plant, because they didn't have a pre-treatment system that worked, taking out these particles before the AD process, they have been putting through 40 to 45 tons of sediments through digesters, but they only have 60 cubic digesters, so that is a total volume. If sand and so on was a problem in the digesters, they will have stopped for a long time ago. Now we finally got the purity or the system for taking out the heavy particles working, and they're taking out the same percentage that's used in the calculation, so it's actually the true numbers. This makes it possible to have an uptime of very high. But of course, we haven't been operating the plants for more than 2 years, that is maximum, on these kind of substrates. We have been running it for animal manure for 6 years, and there's been no problem with sand. We don't use sand as bedding materials in Norway, so we don't have that problem, but like Denmark, they're using sand as a bedding material. They will have that kind of problem in the digesters. And they have a law regulating the quality as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what are we providing as a company? We would like to build, own, and operate biogas plant. That is our main target, in partnership with those owning the substrates, because there will be a competition of substrates. You need to have contracts on it. That is our plan. But we are standardizing our product. Yeah. So this is one of the plants being constructed today. We are in the progress of building 2 new plants. It's standardized. Everything is pre-made. It comes to the factory as it's supposed to be, full, and you just have to connect it. You have to build a pipeline at the biogas plant. The building is standardized. You have different models for it. Depends on the size that you would like to put up the biogas plant, so you can shape it differently. And that hopefully will reduce the cost by 40 to 50% of biogas plants, because most of the cost is actually on the digesters. So this is standardizing process going on. So if anyone interested, I can put you in contact with the salesman team on our side. Then we have the industrial production. Everything's modular. And the company producing this, they have 2 production lines. They can produce 1 complete digester per week. They have 2 lines and can produce 2 digesters per week. But this is a multinational company, so wherever you would like to put up the plant, you can build the digesters closest to the closest factory there. And at full capacity, they can produce 20 digesters per week. That is fairly fast. And there's nothing going on the site other than making the area for putting up the digesters. The second thing we're doing is artificial intelligence. We need to collect data and help the biogas plant to operate at the maximum speed, because that is what you earn money on. You have to produce by every hour you're putting in and every substrate mixture you're putting into it. So we are modifying our process steering system, and we can monitor it from abroad. So we have my group with biologists and experts in AD processes can help the biogas plant. So you don't need a lot of experts on the plant. You can size it yourself. But of course, large biogas plants, they will need to have some competence at the site. That is important. So this is what we are thinking about now. This is one of the projects. We have Salmar, the biggest fish, one of the biggest fish producing companies in Norway. And we have Columbia Farms. They are producing salad, vegetables. They're merging together with putting the biogas plant in between then they can utilize the dig estate for plant production. We can utilize the fish sludge from the salmon farm production at Salmar, and we can use biogas for transport. In Norway, we don't have a gas grid, so we have to liquefy it and get it down to the European market. But that is a special thing for Norway. If you have a gas grid, that will be much easier. So we are creating a renewable future, and if anyone would like, we are standing at F401, just right outside the corner of that tent. Thank you.
How small scale can it be?
We are standardizing at 105 cubic, and that is due to the size of what you can transport on the road. So that is the limitation. But the smallest one is a 30 cubic, and we have one at 60 cubic, but that is not a standardized product. We recommend 105 because the cost between 60, 30 and 105 is more or less nothing.
What does that mean, for example, if you're looking at agriculture, and what would be the herd size for cattle for a dairy farm?
Well, depends on the farm size. In Norway, average farm is 22.5 hectare. Yeah. That's a small farm in Europe. Yeah. The average animal density on those farms are around 40 cattle. So they can operate on one digester, but then you have to scale it up. One digester can process between 4.5 and 5,000 cubic of manure per year.
Is that economic? Is it actually economic to run a 40 head digester for 40 dairy cows?
The farm doing it today, they are self-sufficient on energy, both on heat and electricity, and they are raising piglets, hens, and cow.
Great. But, yep. And on bigger scale ones, if you're scaling up, is there an EPC available? An EPC contract that guarantees performance?
Oh, I think I have to give that floor to my colleagues then, okay. So visit at the stand. And
thanks very much. I think we're nearly up at time, but in case there are any questions, don't forget that you're exhibiting here, aren't you? So
yes,
you
F401.
F401 for anybody who has further questions to ask. Thank you very much.